Now let's use the account data table to store information about sessions. And I'm going to go back to phpMyAdmin and open Poker and go to the account data table. So we have two columns here, username and session, both lowercase. And so let's create some constants. So const account data table is account data, and account data username field is username in all lowercase. And I should have used camel case here to match, and then the other, I think it's session, right? Yeah, session. So those are the columns I need. And then let's look at where this is getting used. So in restore session, we call lookup key value of username account data file. And let's see if we use lookup key anywhere else. So this is the only remaining place we use lookup key because we got rid of the login and register ones. So let's start here. So for restoring a session, we want to set session data to lookup session, and this is going to take just a username. And then in poker code, we'll write lookup session. I'm sorry, poker DB code. We'll write lookup session. Username. And this is going to look just like lookup user, except the column names are a little different. So this DB is the same, real escape string is the same, select star from account data table, where account data username field is equal to safe username. And this is getting long now too, so let me go ahead and break it into multiple lines. Okay, that looks good. So from account data table, where account data username field is equal to safe username, and then we'll do the fetch and return the user array. So this should return the same thing as that lookup was doing before. Session data, and then we're returning the session data account session field. So that should be correct. And then in save session, instead of calling add key value, we're going to want to add session. And that will take a username, serialize of the session, like so. And then add session is going to look a lot like add user, but there's an important difference. So let me go ahead and start by copying this. And I will paste that in, call this add session. And this is going to have a session parameter. So let's refactor, rename session. So that changes session here as well. And then we'll go ahead and change this to the account data table. And this line is starting to get a little long, so let me go ahead and break the line here as well. And then this is the account data username field and the account data session field. And we're passing in safe username and session, so that looks okay. So here's the problem. Insert into only works if this is the first time I'm inserting session data for this particular user. If you try to insert into, that's going to try to create a new row. And if there's already a row with safe username, that's going to cause an error because safe username is the primary key, so you only are allowed to have one row per value of safe username. That's how the primary key works. So what I want to do is I want to insert into if this is the first time I'm ever saving user session data, but I want to update if the username already exists. So update the existing record instead of inserting into to create a new row. And in some SQL engines, you have to do special logic to make that happen, like first check to see if it exists, and then if it exists, you use update. If it doesn't exist, you use insert. But there's a nice feature in MySQL that lets you do this all in one statement called onDuplicateKeyUpdate. So, and this is a clause on the insert statement, so I'm not going to end the statement there. So on duplicate key update, and then I specify which field value I want to change, which is the account data session field, and then I specify the new value, which is equal single quote $session single quote and then semicolon, and then semicolon to end my PHP statement. So this will either insert a new row into the table if it's a brand new user, or it will update the session column of the existing row with session. So let's go ahead and see if this works. I'm going to go back to here and let me log out and log into a real user. So test me 3, test me. Okay, and let's try hitting reload and see if I get the same value, and I do. So far so good. Let's go ahead and discard everything. So 1292 hands, 42 balance, 41 balance, 1293 hands, save the kings, draw, 42 balance, 1293 hands, 41 balance, 1294 hands. Keep the straight the flush draw. 1294, 41, 1295, 40. If I hit reload, I get the same hand. And then keep all three of them. And then reload. So this all seems to be working. Let's go ahead and look at our database. So here's the account data table, and I'll browse this. And let's go ahead and look at the test me 3 data. So I'm going to go to SQL and select star from account data where username equal test me 3. and make this bigger. So it says balance is 41, hands played is 12.95. Balance is 41, hands played is 12.95. So it seems to be updating correctly. Now let's see if it works on a brand new user. So I'm going to log out, create another new user, dbuser3, test me, register. So this would be an insert instead of an update. And I'll keep those 4 cards in draw. Keep the jack. Keep the ace. So it seems to be doing the right thing so far. Let's make sure that we actually inserted a database record here. So I'll go back to Browse. Here's my new DB user. So this actually seems to be working correctly for both update and insert. At this point, I should be able to get rid of my AccountData.csv, and it should still work. So let me go ahead and reload again. Same values, and if I log out and log back into test me 3, log in, it remembered where I was, dealt me a new hand. So I really only have one other thing I can do here. This, let's look at where these things are called. So in PokerDB code, lookup session, find usages, it's only called in one place. In restore session, and restore session, find usages, is only called in require login, which happens 1 per page. So this is only happening once per page, which is fine. But then if we look at add session, I'm going to find usages, and this only happens in one place too, and save session. But then look, save session actually gets called and set session value. And set session value gets called a bunch of times. So it gets called 5 times in deal and 4 times in draw cards. So every time set session value is called, save session is going to get called, and that means that add session is going to get called as well. So I'm basically going to have 5 database queries here, 1 for each session update, and 4 database queries here, 1s for each session update. And that's more work than you really need to do. And database queries, particularly updates, they tend to be slow. So we really don't want to do all of those queries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove save session from set session value, and I'm going to explicitly call it after all the set session values, like so. So that means I'm only calling save session once after I've made all of my session changes. So I only do 1 query instead of doing 5 queries. Then I'm going to do the same thing here, once instead of 4. So that's just a little optimization improvement, but it's a good one. And then I'll hit reload to make sure everything is still working. I'll draw, back, draw. So 1297, 40, 1298, 39. Hit reload, get the same hand. I'll try logging out, log back in. Same starting hand and same session values. So doing the same thing as before, but a little more efficiently. And that's it for storing session data in the database.